On the morning of her wedding, Sophia Blake received a bouquet with no card, no name, and no congratulations. Only a small silver key tied to a blue thread. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Then she saw the number carved into the key. 7 years earlier, that number had meant escape. It meant an old train station locker, 2 tickets to Boston, and a man named Mark who promised he would meet her there and never let her look back. But Mark never came. Sophia was told he had taken money from her father and disappeared. She believed it because the truth hurt less when it had a villain. Now, 3 hours before she was supposed to marry another man, the past had returned with one sentence hidden among the flowers. Before you say yes, open locker 17. And what Sophia found inside did not just threaten her wedding. It threatened the entire life she had built on a lie. Sophia Blake was supposed to wake up happy. That was what brides did. They woke up smiling in soft white robes, surrounded by perfume, flowers, champagne, and women telling them how beautiful they looked. But Sophia woke up with a strange weight in her chest, as if someone had placed a hand over her heart during the night and never removed it. Rain tapped against the hotel window. It was not a storm, only a quiet gray rain that made the city look unfinished. Her wedding dress hung on the wardrobe door, white and perfect, waiting for the version of Sophia who was supposed to put it on without hesitation. Her phone kept lighting up. "Are you ready? Don't cry before makeup. Dennis is already nervous." Dennis, her fiancé, the man waiting downstairs. Kind, steady, patient Dennis, who had loved her through her silence, her grief, her long pauses, and the strange distance she sometimes carried without explanation. He was the kind of man people called a blessing, the kind of man a woman was supposed to hold on to. Sophia loved him. At least, she had spent 2 years telling herself that love could be calm, safe, reasonable. Then her younger sister Mila came into the room carrying a bouquet of white peonies. "Courier delivery," Mila said. "No card." Very dramatic for this early in the morning. Sophia took the bouquet, and something cold slipped against her palm. A key, small, silver, tied with blue thread. Her breath stopped. Mila frowned. "Sophia." Sophia turned the key over and saw the tiny stamp number. For a moment, the hotel room disappeared. She was 23 again, standing in the rain outside the old train station, wearing a blue dress under a cheap coat, holding 2 lives in her hands. One life belonged to her father's house, her father's money, her father's rules. The other belonged to Mark Rivera. Mark, with reckless eyes and oil-stained fingers. Mark, who fixed watches and old radios and once told her that broken things were not useless, only waiting for someone patient enough to understand them. Her father hated him, said Mark was poor, said he was unstable, said love did not pay rent, did not build a future, did not protect a woman from regret. But Sophia had chosen Mark anyway. They were supposed to leave together. Friday night, 2 tickets to Boston. Locker 17, where Mark said he would leave their last things before the train. He never showed. Later, her father told her Mark had taken money and left alone. Sophia refused to believe it at first. Then anger became easier than hope. She buried that night so deep she almost convinced herself it had stopped breathing. Almost. Between the flowers, Sophia found a folded note. "Before you say yes, open locker 17. Old station. If you still remember." Mila read the note over her shoulder and went pale. "No," she whispered. "Absolutely not." Sophia could barely hear her. "You can't go to the station," Mila said. "Your wedding starts in 3 hours." Sophia looked at the dress, the lace, the buttons, the life waiting downstairs. Then she looked at the key. "If I marry him without knowing what this is," she said, "I'll hear that locker opening for the rest of my life." Mila grabbed her wrist. "And Dennis?" Sophia closed her eyes. That name hurt more than she expected. "Tell him I needed the truth before I could make a promise." She changed into jeans, a sweater, and a coat while Mila stood by the dress, looking at it as if it were a body left behind. Then Sophia slipped out through the service hallway before the makeup artist could find her, and before her mother could ask questions Sophia was not ready to answer. The taxi ride to the old station felt unreal. She sat in the back seat with wedding flowers on her lap, watching the city blur behind rain-streaked glass. The driver glanced at her in the mirror twice but did not ask why a bride without a dress looked like she was running from her own life. The station smelled the same. Wet stone, metal, burnt coffee, old dust. At the far end of the hall, near a closed newspaper stand, the lockers waited in a row. Number 17 was still there. Sofia's hand trembled as she slid the key in. Turned. Inside was a black wooden box wrapped in blue thread. Her name was written on the lid in handwriting she had spent 7 years trying to forget. She lifted the box with both hands. Then a voice behind her said, "I was afraid you wouldn't come." Sofia turned so fast the box nearly fell, and her heart broke in a way she had not expected. Because the man standing behind her was not Mark. It was Dennis. For several seconds, Sofia could not speak. Dennis stood a few feet away in his wedding suit, his dark coat open, his hair damp from the rain. He looked less like a groom and more like a man who had walked into his own heartbreak on purpose. Behind him, people rushed toward trains, dragging suitcases, holding coffee, checking tickets. The world kept moving with cruel normality. "What are you doing here?" Sofia asked. Dennis looked at the black box in her hands. "I think I should be asking you that," he said quietly. "But I already know the answer." Her chest tightened. "You sent the bouquet." He nodded. The words hit her harder than if he had shouted. "Why?" Dennis looked past her at locker 17. "Because I didn't want you to marry me with a ghost standing between us." Sofia felt shame rise hot in her throat. "You knew about Mark?" "Not at first." He gave a small, painful smile. "A few months ago, you said his name in your sleep." Sofia looked away. "I'm sorry. I wasn't angry," he said. "I was scared. Because you sounded like someone calling for help from a room I had never been allowed to enter. That was worse than anger." Sofia wished he would accuse her. She wished he would make himself easier to hurt. But Dennis had never known how to be cruel, even when cruelty would have protected him. "How did you find the key?" she asked. Dennis reached into his coat and took out a folder, worn at the edges. "Your father's house. After the funeral. You asked me to pick up the boxes from his study. Remember?" Sofia nodded slowly. There was one box marked insurance papers. It wasn't insurance papers. What was it? Dennis looked at her for a long moment. Letters from Mark. The station noise faded. "No. Dozens of them. Some opened. Some still sealed. All hidden." Sofia's knees weakened. She reached for the lockers to steady herself. "My father said Mark took money." "I know." "He said Mark left." "I know." Dennis opened the folder and handed her the first letter. The paper was yellowed. The handwriting was Mark's. "Sofia, I came to the station. You weren't there. I waited until midnight. Your father said you changed your mind. I don't believe him. I'll come back tomorrow." Her hand started shaking. She took another. "I tried to see you. They wouldn't let me inside. They said you don't want me anymore. If that's true, I'll leave. If it isn't, find me. Please find me." Another. "I left the key to locker 17. Everything I couldn't say is there. I don't know if this will reach you, but if it does, know this. I did not sell our life. I would have rather lost everything than lose you that way." Sofia pressed the letter to her chest. The memory came back with violence. Her father standing in the living room that night, face hard, voice calm. Her mother crying silently near the window. The envelope of money on the table. "He took it," her father had said. "He chose the money. Men like him always choose the easier road." Sofia had believed him because the alternative was unbearable. She had believed her father because daughters are taught to believe the people who claim they are protecting them. "Why didn't you tell me when you found them?" she whispered. Dennis closed his eyes. "Because I was selfish for one night." She looked at him. "I sat with those letters until sunrise," he said. "And at first all I could think was, if she reads these, I lose her. Then I realized something worse." "What?" "If you never read them, I might still lose you. But slowly. Every year. Every quiet dinner. Every time you looked out a window and didn't know what you were missing. Sofia covered her mouth. Dennis pointed to the box. I found the key with the letters. I didn't know what was in the locker, but I knew you had to open it before today, not after. Sofia opened the wooden box. Inside were old train tickets, a blue ribbon, a small photograph of her and Mark laughing by the river, and a cassette tape labeled, "If she ever hears this." At the bottom was a newer white envelope. On the front, in handwriting Sofia recognized immediately, were the words, "If she comes with him, let him read this too." Inside was an address. And a date. Today's date. Beneath it, one sentence. "I'll wait until noon. Then I'll leave for good." Sofia stared at the station clock. 10:48. Her wedding was waiting. Her past was waiting. And Dennis, the man she was supposed to marry, stepped aside and said the one thing that hurt most. Go. Sofia arrived at the address with 11 minutes to spare. The taxi stopped in an old part of the city near the river, where brick warehouses had become cafes, studios, and workshops with hand-painted signs. Rain ran down the windows. Her bouquet lay forgotten on the seat beside her. The black box rested in her lap like a verdict. The sign above the door read, "Rivera Clock Repair." For a moment, she almost laughed. Of course, Mark had always loved broken time. When they were young, he used to buy old watches from flea markets and spread their tiny parts across his kitchen table. "Time doesn't really break," he once told her. "Only the things we use to measure it do." She had thought that was romantic. Now it felt like a warning. The workshop door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled of wood, oil, dust, and metal. Dozens of clocks covered the walls. Some ticked loudly. Others were silent. Sofia stood in the doorway and felt as though she had walked into a room where every version of her life was counting down at once. A man stood behind the workbench. He was older, thinner. There was silver near his temples, and a scar along his left hand she did not recognize. But when he looked up, 7 years vanished so suddenly Sofia forgot how to breathe. Mark. He did not smile. He looked at her as if hope had hurt him too many times to be trusted quickly. "You came," he said. Sofia held up the letters. "You wrote." His eyes moved to them, then to her face. "I wrote until I ran out of ways to beg without becoming pathetic. My father hid them." "I know." That answer stunned her. "You know?" Mark reached under the counter and took out another envelope. "He came here 3 weeks ago." Sofia stepped back. "My father." Mark nodded. "He was sick, weaker than I remembered. I almost didn't recognize him. He stood right where you're standing and said he had spent 7 years calling his cruelty protection." Sofia's throat tightened. Her father had died the week before the wedding. In his last months, he had tried to talk to her more than once. But she was busy with flowers, seating charts, dress fittings, and the careful machinery of becoming someone's wife. "What did he want?" she asked. "To confess. But he said he was too much of a coward to do it while looking at you." Mark handed her the envelope. Inside was a letter from her father. "My Sofia, I told myself I was saving you. I was really saving myself from the fear of watching you choose a life I could not control. Mark did not take my money. He came for you. I made sure you never knew. I thought love would make you weak. I know now that I was the weak one. Do not marry silence just because it is safe. And do not return to the past only because it still hurts. Choose the person beside whom your heart does not have to hide." Sofia sat down before her legs gave way. Mark stayed where he was. He did not touch her, did not rush toward her, did not try to turn the confession into a reunion. That almost broke her more. "Why today?" she asked. "Because your father gave Dennis the key before he died." Sofia looked up sharply. "Dennis knew?" "He came to see me yesterday." The room seemed to stop ticking. "What?" Mark looked away. "He asked me what I wanted. I told him the truth. I said I wanted to see you once, not to take you, not to ruin your life, but to know that you finally knew I never abandoned you." Sofia's eyes filled. "What did Dennis say?" Mark's voice softened. "He said, Then I'll give her the choice you were both denied. Sofia pressed her hand to her mouth. Dennis. Kind, steady Dennis. The man who had every reason to bury the truth and still chose to deliver it. Mark looked at the clock above the door. 11:58. I'm leaving at noon, he said. For where? Seattle. A repair shop offered me a partnership. I said yes because I thought your wedding would close this chapter for both of us. And now I don't know. The clock ticked. 11:59. Sofia looked at him and saw the boy she had loved, the man he had become, the years stolen from them, and the life she might have had if one lie had not changed everything. Then she thought of Dennis waiting in a room full of guests, holding her absence like a wound he had chosen. At noon, every clock in the shop began to chime. Mark closed his eyes. I won't ask you to stay. Sofia stood. I know. He opened his eyes. And I won't ask you to leave with me. I know that too. She walked to the door, then stopped. Mark. His face changed at the sound of his name. If time could go back, I would be at that station. His voice broke. So would I. Sofia nodded, tears slipping down her face. Then she left. Not because she had chosen Dennis. Not because she had chosen Mark. But because for the first time in 7 years, she had to choose herself in front of both of them. When Sofia returned to the wedding hall, the music had stopped. That was the first thing she noticed. No violin, no soft piano, no nervous laughter from guests pretending not to know something was wrong. Just silence, heavy and waiting. The white flowers on the arch looked almost cruel. The candles were still lit. The rows of chairs were full. Everyone turned when she walked in. Sofia was not wearing her wedding dress. Her coat was wet. Her hair had fallen loose. Her makeup had never been done. In one hand she carried Mark's letters. In the other, her father's confession. Mila stood near the front with red eyes. Her mother looked as if she had aged 10 years in one morning. And Dennis stood beneath the wedding arch alone. He did not look angry. That made it harder. He looked tired, as if the waiting had taken something from him that he would never get back. Sofia walked toward him slowly. Someone whispered her name. Dennis met her halfway. Did you see him? He asked. Yes. Did you hear the truth? Yes. He nodded once. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. Then tell me. The room seemed to lean in. Sofia looked at the guests, then back at him. I can't marry you today. A small sound moved through the room. Her mother covered her mouth. Dennis closed his eyes. Because of him? No. His eyes opened. Sofia's voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. Because of me. Because if I say yes today, it won't be a promise. It will be a hiding place. And you deserve better than becoming the man I used to avoid the truth. Dennis looked at her for a long time. And Mark? I don't know what Mark is anymore, she said honestly. Maybe he is the love I lost. Maybe he is the ending I never received. Maybe he is the beginning of something I'm not ready to touch. But I know this. I cannot stand between two lives and call it marriage. For the first time, Dennis looked hurt enough to frighten her. I wanted you to choose me, he said. I know. I wanted to be enough. You were never not enough. He gave a sad laugh. That sounds beautiful, Sofia, but it still feels like losing. She began to cry. I'm sorry. Dennis looked toward the doors, then back at her. I gave you the key because I loved you, he said. But part of me hoped the truth would bring you back to me. Fully. Finally. His voice broke on the last word. And it didn't. Sofia could not answer. Dennis removed the ring box from his pocket. The one he was supposed to open after she reached the altar. He held it in his palm for a moment, then closed his fingers around it. I don't regret giving you the key, he said. But I need you to understand something. She nodded. Love is not only letting someone go. Sometimes love is also knowing when not to wait. Those words struck her harder than any accusation. He turned to the guests and, with a calmness that seemed impossible, said, There will be no wedding today. The room erupted in whispers. Mila started crying. Sofia's mother stepped forward, but Sofia raised a hand. Then her mother said the one thing Sofia was not prepared to hear. I knew. Sofia turned slowly. What? Her mother's face collapsed. I didn't know everything, but I knew your father stopped Mark from seeing you. I knew there were letters. I told myself it was your father's decision. I told myself staying silent would keep the family from falling apart. Sofia felt the floor disappear beneath her. You let me hate him, her mother sobbed. I thought hate would hurt less than waiting. Sofia looked at Dennis, then at her mother, then at the guests who had come to watch her promise a future while everyone around her had been hiding pieces of her past. She did not scream. She did not collapse. She simply walked out. Outside, rain had turned the pavement silver. For the first time that day, no one followed her. And for the first time in her life, Sofia was grateful to be completely alone. Sofia did not run back to Mark. That was not how the story ended. Stories like this are expected to choose quickly. The bride runs from the wedding. The lost love opens his arms. Music swells. The past is forgiven because it is romantic. But real love does not heal simply because the truth arrives. For weeks, Sofia stayed with Mila in a small apartment above a bakery. She turned off her phone for 2 days, then turned it back on and found messages from everyone except the 2 men she could not stop thinking about. Dennis sent only one. I hope one day this hurts less for both of us. Mark sent nothing. Somehow that felt right. Sofia spent the winter learning how to live inside the truth. She visited her father's grave and read his letter aloud, not because he deserved forgiveness, but because she deserved to stop carrying words that had never been spoken. She sat across from her mother in a kitchen that smelled of old guilt and listened to apologies that could not repair what silence had broken. And she met Dennis one last time in March. They sat in a quiet cafe while rain moved down the windows. I'm moving to Chicago, he said. For work. For distance. Sofia nodded, tears already in her eyes. I hurt you. Yes, he said. But you didn't betray me by needing the truth. I think the betrayal would have been marrying me while pretending you didn't. She wiped her cheek. I did love you. I know, Dennis said. Just not in the way a man hopes to be loved on his wedding day. Before he left, he placed the ring box on the table. Sofia stared at it. I can't take that. It isn't the ring, he said. Inside was the key to locker 17. I kept it after the wedding, Dennis said. I think it belongs to you now. Not because of Mark. Because it opened more than a locker. Then he stood, kissed her forehead, and walked out of her life with more grace than heartbreak should allow. Spring came slowly. One afternoon, Sofia went to Mark's workshop. She did not call first. The bell above the door rang, and Mark looked up from a broken clock. For a moment, neither of them moved. You came, he said. This time I did. That almost made him smile. There was no dramatic embrace. No instant forgiveness. No pretending 7 years could be returned like a borrowed coat. They made tea. They sat across from each other. They talked about the years they had lost, not as lovers trying to revive a dream, but as 2 people standing carefully near the ruins of something sacred. I don't want to go back, Sofia said. Mark nodded. Neither do I. I don't know if I can love you as the woman I am now. I don't know if I can be loved without being afraid you'll disappear. She looked at him. Then maybe we don't start with love. What do we start with? The truth. So they did. Months passed. They walked. They argued. They laughed awkwardly at memories that still hurt. Some days Sofia missed Dennis so sharply that guilt made her quiet. Some days Mark looked at her like he was still waiting for someone to take her away. But slowly something new began to grow. Not the wild, reckless love of 23. Something older, more careful, more honest. A year after the wedding that never happened, Sofia returned to the old train station. Mark came with her, but he did not hold her hand until she reached for his first. Locker 17 was empty now. Sofia stood before it with the silver key in her palm. Then she took the blue thread from her wrist, the one she had tied there that morning, and placed it inside the locker. Mark watched quietly. What are you leaving there? He asked. Sofia closed the locker door. The girl who waited for someone else to choose her life. The station clock read 10:03, the same time she had opened the locker 1 year before. A train passed slowly beyond the glass. Sofia looked at it and smiled. Once she had believed love meant running away with someone. Then she believed love meant staying where it was safe. Now she knew better. Love was not the train. Love was not the locker. Love was not even the person waiting on the other side of a door. Love was the moment you stopped lying to your own heart. Mark reached for her hand. This time Sofia took it. And when the train pulled away, she did not wonder where it was going. For the first time in years, she was not trying to escape her life. She was finally living it.